Hello, Culture Matters podcast. This is going to be fun. Before I introduce our guest, here's a quote just for this episode, page 139, Finding Honor. I had false power. I thought money, prestige, titles, and awards made me powerful. I am decorated in this life, which proves I am a worthy soldier. But the worth of a leadership cannot be given. The worth of a following cannot be bought. Those who don't see you will stray. True fellowship comes from showing yourself nakedly, exposing your detriments, letting the world view your scarred and broken truths, and having people stay with you anyway. When a man remains at your table, when there is no food, you know you have a friend. Christine Beckwith, our guest today. If you know the show, you know her, the founder, the leader, the shepherd of the flock, the speaker, the author of Finding Honor, The Journey to the Truth, High, Breaking the Cycle, 2020 Vision, Clear Boundaries. Hello, wake up, everybody. Welcome
Can you
back.
keep up?
Yeah, founder of 2020 Vision for Success Coaching, friend of the Culture Matters podcast, is back, and we're talking about chapter 16, um, standing down in Finding Honor. So that's a quote on page 139. Christine, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, I mean, in this chapter, I I could have called it standing up, just as easily as I could have called it standing down. And I always like to do an interesting, deeper psychological discussion with my themes of my lessons, I guess, if you will. And this is a lesson book, and it's breaking my whole development and personal, professional development journey. Really, that's what this is about. It's about getting honest with yourself. It's about putting in the work to discover who you are, what you are, why you are, how you are. And then looking at that and deciding if change is needed and habits need to be broken, etc. I wanted, in my lifetime, I had carried a tremendous amount of guilt over a part of who I was that I had consistently been warned as an adult that that particular characteristic was wrong. And so to unpack that, I always say I was raised by two mothers. This is the truth. One was my biological mother that I grew up with, and whatever lessons in my household. And when I say mother, I mean parents, and I mean, I was raised in my domesticized world that I grew up in. And so I took what I did from that. But I went out into the world at 18. I ran from my home. I couldn't get out quick enough. I left my house to move away, never to return, 7 days from the day I graduated. And the second mother became the mortgage industry. This is a true story. And so what happens now is I go into the clutches of the banking industry and I spend 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week for the next 35 years being guided and mentored by people that were employing me. And so that's kind of like going into some level of
Hmm.
ownership, like being owned by something. Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of words that get flung around in our industry, like pay to play and the playbook, and if you're getting money, if you're a paid for opinion. I hear those words spoken. And it's true that we fall in line to the people that pay us. I mean, ultimately, it's the connection to our livelihood and our well-being and our financial security. So, of course, there's a sense of probably natural loyalty. That's what work is. You know, you can go back to the 1920s when work hands worked, and as you know, the only work there was to farm. You know, the men would go and work on farms, and if they had a useful skill, they would get paid for it. So in this chapter, I was kind of like that wild horse. And so when you bought my work and you brought me into your stable, I wasn't really that horse that stood in the stable quietly eating the grain, and you could come get me to, row the field and then put me back. And I was going to be, just that great workhorse. I had a magnificent work ethic, but I was that like break through the gate wild horse where you were going to come in the morning and my stable was going to be fucking empty. And you were going to be like, where's the horse we bought? Where's Christine? And I would be like running amok in the field and doing my own thing. And it caused me to have conflict in my world in many different ways. Number one, I looked like I was combative. And I wasn't really consciously combative. It's just that I wasn't tameable. And so most of my adult life, I just felt fearless with my speak. And some people would call that careless or unpolished or unclassy or crass. Um, I wasn't the usual boardroom person, even though I had made my way through, I'd earned my spot at tables through top sales that were undeniable. I came as that, even with all the years experience in business that I have today, I'm still the unpolished businesswoman. And what that means is I'm going to say things just very bluntly. I'm not saying it to be combative. I'm not saying to hurt. If anybody spends an hour with my real mother, you'll know why I'm like this. Because my speak was learned in the first 18 years by a woman that is very blonde. And so this chapter, I wanted everybody to know what the price tag was for me because I would begin to fall in line. So what happened is I realized that I was rough around the edges. I was intuitive enough to hear the criticisms in the secret whispers just outside my view of people of me. I felt it. I could feel some of the women looking at me a certain way. I was never conventional in my dress. I rode a Harley. I'd spend the weekends at biker rallies. A great example is when I was the executive, vice president of sales for my last 10 years. Every April, I get on an airplane wherever I was traveling because I was always on the road. And I would pay for somebody to drive my motorcycle or pull my motorcycle all the way to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and I would fly to meet my motorcycle in South Beach in Myrtle Beach. And I would spend 7 days immersed into the biker country with 100,000 seedy bikers at bars that would make people's hair curl with that type of likes of people because those were the people I grew up around, and I'm a biker. And then I would go back, in the same suitcase. And so standing down shares why limiting yourself or trying to tame yourself or trying to fit into the box or trying to quell your voice will kill you. What I unpacked there is that I tried to get better at this. I tried to fall in line. I felt the shame that was put on me for being outspoken. I felt that I wasn't doing it right. I was constantly feeling like I wasn't doing it right. And I wasn't looking at myself the whole time. I was building guilt and shame and negative feelings while getting superior results from my sales force. And so it wasn't until I got an older woman that I said one day, well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. I'm getting better results than my peers. The way I am must have a positive effect on people because when I talk, people listen. I could sit in a boardroom and watch everybody talking to each other and not paying attention and looking at their phones. And the minute I began to speak, everybody's heads would rise and I'd have complete eye contact by everybody at the table. Their phones would go down, their computers would close. And I knew that when I spoke, I demanded some sort of attention, not because I said so, but because they wanted to hear me. And so when I started to see with my own eyes the power that I had of persuasion, of leadership, the ability, and I realized it was a power. I think for a little while the power went to my head, and I talk about that. Not in this chapter. In another chapter, I talk about kind of getting egotistical around some of the power that I would get in my career. In this chapter, I tell you the price tag I paid for a couple of decades of trying to quell myself. Trying to stand down. I was trying to stand down. I was trying not to be combative. I was trying not to fight my intuition when I felt like they were going in the wrong direction. I can remember being at the boardroom table when they were bringing another bright idea. It was like the 20th tech stack thing. I had seen the troops. They were weathered. They weren't using the shit to fruition that they already had in their toolbox. I knew the company was going to waste their money. And yet here were 20 people telling the CEO that it was a great idea and he should write this check. And I was sitting there the whole time saying, this is a horrible idea. They're not ready for it. They're not using the shit they already have. This is going to be a waste of money. This team sitting here won't put the work in. I already know because they're not doing it with the other shit. And am I going to just fucking upheave this whole discussion right now? I happen to be the last person in the circle that was going to get to speak. And I can remember being like 2 hours worth of like internal strife to the point where I felt like I was sweating. My heart was racing. And I was like, am I going to blow this discussion up and look like that guy again? And I had to come to terms with that. And I believed in my ability to call the shots. I believed I knew how to call the shots, to save money, to make money. And so I had to grow into that skin. At some point, I get the confidence to realize that even though I'm unconventional and even though people are going to choose not to like me, and even though I have an unfortunate combination of being an empath that wants popularity and for everyone to love me, and I bleed and hurt when they don't, that I have a personality that isn't going to be liked by everyone. And so I got really good at accepting I need to find my people. And the relationships I have are kind of, I want to say it the right way. My relationships I have are so strong that if you look at my fan base, my top fans are nauseating to my social media. There's no question about it because they are gushing because I made some important vital change in their life that was profound. And I appreciate that. That's the top of the food chain. Down below are the people that are like, oh my God, I can't listen to this woman for another second. I can't stand it. That doesn't matter to me anymore. If you're going to hire me, I'm going to teach you that your best, if you can align your best, if you can understand what you're good at, and you can be confident in that way, and other people around you aren't afraid of your power, because power is scary. When you're sitting next to somebody that has a lot of power, it's scary. It evokes fear. The fear of I'm going to take shit off your table, fear that I'm going to make you less important. It's an alpha effect where the other person has to fall behind you. And even though the person that's strong like that isn't really saying, hey, get behind me, it happens subconsciously. And so then you have fake alphas that are fighting you and they think that they're supposed to or whatever. And I'd like to coin a new term. I don't know that it's a pass fail in the alpha world where like there's an alpha and then everybody else is fake. I think that there is a byproduct of an alpha that isn't quite the number one alpha, whereas it's an alpha-like person or it's a just level 2. They're very strong opinionated, very capable. They could lead if the leader wasn't there, but they're going to fight the leader. And so you need a number of those people. And I have learned a long time ago that when I bring those people into my fold, more often than not, they're going to fight me because of the type of makeup that they have. They'll be obedient to a level. So this chapter unpacks coming to terms with your ability to stand down, what the price tag of doing that is, or was for me at least. And what are the benefits of standing up? What if your greatest, strongest voice that you have in you, the wild part of you is natural? I think I've told you even in our coaching, please don't polish all my edges. I don't want to be refined. I'm not seeking perfection. I want to stay somewhat in my original blueprint.
What advice do you have for someone that wants to get better at speaking up?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a hard thing to teach, I think, because here's the thing that happens when people speak up and they're coaxed into doing it. They have regret. They can't back it up. They can pick the initial fight, but they can't finish it. They usually get the shit kicked out of them in the fight. I've tried in my past to like go, you can do this, get in there, go over the ropes, and then watch the person like get the shit kicked out of them. And be like, oh shit, get out, like I've got you, come here. No, and I laugh, but it's true. I don't know that you
That's
can
funny.
train. I don't know that you can train people. I think what I'm seeking in this chapter are people like me that know they have this fight in them, that are truly alphas, and they see that they're not, they're constantly being checked. I had leaders that wanted, I could name names, but my CEOs didn't want me to be the way. They would, wince at times at shit, I would say. And at the same time, they wanted me because they knew I was a winning racehorse. And it's really, that's a great metaphor. Because if you ever go to the races, the horse races, um, and you find that new horse that nobody, people haven't studied for forever and they don't have any wins, but somebody's putting their money on them and they're saying they have the propensity to win. I think people have been betting on me like that my whole life, and I've been making people a lot of money because I will, when you let me out of the gates and you shoot the gun flare in the air, I'm gonna run and I'm gonna compete and I'm gonna win. And so I do think, but I'm also not going to be steady in the stable, and I'm not going to be, you're not going to be able to have people come pet me, and you're not going to have people that, you can't bring me home with you. Like in order for us to really accept each other's greatness, we have to accept the eccentricness of each other. I would say in me meeting you, I think the reason you and I work and have always worked is I've always wanted to be seen and accepted. And I've been largely misunderstood. And so I think in living a life where your natural person isn't likable by a lot of people, that of course we all want to be popular, and I could fake that when I needed to. Like I could fit in and pretend. Um, but I'm much better today. I'm free today. Finding
Wow.
honor is the story of me becoming liberated, really. It's my story of finding the truth, the journey to my truth. It's me wrestling the confines of society and business, and you find me choking on that in the beginning of this book, where the story begins, where we intersect in Philadelphia, and I'm in this high ranking, high paying position, dying, um, and not free to express. Look what happened when I finally broke those chains. I wrote 5 books. I'm on my 6th book. It's like my lifetime of words are pouring out of me. I haven't, people will say, well, what happened to you when you left here? Man, you've written 5 books. You did this. I became free. 32 years of sitting and waiting my turn to speak at that boardroom table and then having to quell what I said.
Wow.
I got to tell you, that day I didn't. I said, I think this is ludicrous. Everyone like looked at me. I said, I can't even believe we are sitting here talking about implementing yet another thing with a wearied group of people that are sucking at the last 10 things we implemented, a leadership team that doesn't hold accountability, a person that doesn't want to write another check for another wasted thing, and not one of you out of 20 of us recognizes what I'm thinking as I'm sitting here.
Wow.
I'm like, I cannot get behind this. No, I veto it. And I want to tell you, 19 people said why it was a good idea, and I was the one. And you want to know what the end of the decision ended up being by that CEO? They didn't do it. So that stuck with me later on too, that my one truthful, honest opinion was enough to guide somebody forward. And that's what people are really looking for. And so today I'm getting hired for what I'm good at. I will tell people today, I'm not here to be your friend. I just onboarded a new executive team yesterday that is contracted with us, and it was 6 executives, an owner, and 2 senior executives. And they're trying to find their way forward with new senior leadership, and there's some internal strife, and they're not being as accountable as they could with executionary things. And I didn't come on too strong because I needed to make a first impression, but I made it clear that I am not here to be their friend. This isn't a popularity contest. They need to be honest with one another, that I'll stand in the ring and let them wrestle. They also don't need to fight if they don't want to fight. I'm not asking them to fight. What I'm asking them is for real honesty, uncomfortable, awkward, leaning into conflict honesty, which you've helped me get good at.
Hey, what type of results do you see when people are in these teams being more direct with one another around the big topics?
It's funny because I have to tell you, I have had to fight my own clients for about, you know, I've been doing this 5 years now. And I also obviously had to hone my skills doing this as well, because it was new to me to be immediately immersed into leadership that I hadn't been a part of, or a team I hadn't grown. I had permission within the companies I worked for to kind of be bold and outspoken because I had earned their trust, and they liked me. Now I'm coming in as a third party unknown entity, so I have to ease my way in. But I'm going to tell you, like, what I find is the very people that need the most change are the most combative, and a lot of that resides at the top of organizations where the CEOs and SVPs are unself-aware. They've been spending a lifetime giving their orders, and they don't realize how effed up they are, or the reasons why they veto things when it makes sense, just because they don't like the delivery of the person that's saying it. And so I'm kind of here to really, I don't say black when people say white. I'm not here to combat people or be leaning into conflict for the sake of doing it. If something sounds right, I'm like, yeah, that sounds right. Here's the business etiquette you need to go through to make sure you're vetting this process right. But every once in a while, and almost every single time that I'm consulting people, I see bad behavior at an executive level. And I question them. I got to tell you, I've taken serious swings in public, like, settings where there's, many people sitting in a room, and not mildly either. And just had to wrestle that. Like, once I get pulled over the ropes with somebody that I've called out for something, and they're starting to fight me on that. First of all, I'm not going to say it unless I really believe it. And the thing about me is, if I believe what I'm saying, then you pulling me over the ropes, I have endless amounts of energy to stand in that fight. Like, I won't go down easy, and I will stay long. And if I've got to fight the fight 10 times to win it, I will, if I really believe in it. So I'm careful with my words. I'm direct with my words. I will never be unprofessional, meaning I understand the hierarchy. If the CEO is in the room and I have something to say about the CEO, it's not being said with his subordinates in the room or hers. That's a private conversation, but I'm not afraid to say, like, look, I think you're being a little authority mongering, or I've called all kinds of things out. Um, I've also had to walk away when people are destroying their businesses, when they won't take my advice. And all I can do is give it. All I can do is give it, and then kind of let the chips fall where they lay. One thing I'll tell you that I can't seem to fix in myself with this whole, standing down thing, is that this has only happened since I've been liberated too in the last 5 years. But if I had somebody wrong me leading up to the point where I started 2020, I could live with them. I could live with them to a degree and just in my head say, I don't like this person, but I'm just, I got to get along. I got to go along because I had to. I had to go to work and I had to work with people I didn't like. Um, I don't have to work with people I don't like anymore. So I've fired my clients in the last 5 years. Um, in some many, not a lot, but I mean several. And I have also fired myself from jobs that I just couldn't stand working with somebody. And I have also decided if somebody shows me they're disloyal to me, then I cannot, I can forgive them because I have a chapter, obviously, forgiving your killers. I won't carry the hate in me, but they are like dead to me. And the problem with me is that if you already show me you're disloyal, I do believe in second chances. I am really good at sticking it out and trying a second, third time. But when I really reach my end, and I don't know if it's 3 times or 10 times, but whatever I give a person to show and reprove or whatever, because I'm not quick to quit people. But when I get there, it's 100% irreversible. There's people in this business right now that I see every day that have been disloyal to me. I can't even bring myself to read a comment or a post that they put up. Like when I tell you if they come up in my timeline, like I literally cannot, I won't give them a second of my time because I have so shut the door and put the nails in the door of that. And it's to the point where it's hard because people that I work with these people, or people that I work with are close to these people. They bring them up to me. And when they're talking to me, the only thing I'm hearing is like nothing. And when they're done talking, it's almost like I can't give a response. Like they may be trying to convince me to like do something with the person again. And I'm like, so let's talk about the next thing. Meaning I can't even acknowledge this. Like I can't. So I don't know what that part means about me. But I guess I'm just at the age now where I've decided that anybody like that can't be in my camp.
Um, has that helped you with chapter 12, no goodbyes? Empathize with the person that will leave unnamed and with
Yeah.
their state psychologically?
No, I'm going to tell you something. Like I moved on and forgave in that situation. I've thought about that person a few times, and this is horrible because this person I hope is in heaven, and I hope this, and I'm spiritual. And so I feel like speaking right now, maybe he can hear what I'm saying. I can forgive him. I've forgiven him. I'm sure he has his reasons. I won't even let myself think about him. I spend no time thinking about him. And when other people are thinking about him or talking about him, I can't even be part of that conversation. And I don't know what it is in me that I give so much of myself to people. And in that no goodbye story, I decided to honor him to his bitter end and show him me in spite of the way that I was treated. And in a way, that's a power trip because that's like me controlling the narrative and saying, you're not going to make me an angry person when I should feel hurt. And I was hurt. Um, but he showed me his hand. And if you're willing to give me a life sentence on something, fuck you. Like, fuck you, dude. And fuck her. Like, I have people in my life, and honestly, I hate to say this, they can go fuck themselves. Like, if they decide that I am not someone they're going to honor and I have shown them kindness. I have someone right now that's pretty prominent in this industry that I could pull up every text and email I've ever written to this person. And it has been kind, caring, forgiving, overcoming, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth chances. And that person never would acknowledge me. And now there's been a power shift in this person's world. And so now it's kind of like everybody's like, well, let's just all get along because this person now has been demoted in society's outlook. No, no, that ain't happening. Not in my world. Everybody else can play with that person. I would warn everybody who they're playing with, you know, but maybe they know. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. They can choose they can make their choices. So, I mean, that's very hard for me to undo,
Mm.
you know. I have had people I felt that way about, and I've talked myself into giving them a second chance. I've had a few people where I've said, let's try again after closing the door for like a year in my mind. And then I said, Christine, because they're around someone I love and I want to be in a better place with it. And then all of a sudden I'm giving that and I'm willing to try, you know? So yeah, in ending on this chapter, standing up has a price tag. I talk about it in this. The title is not standing up, it's called standing down. And that's my point. Standing down has a price tag. I paid a price tag my whole life for not standing up for who I was and what I was and believing that my power was bad because people that feared me were telling me so. And today, I know that I'm a good person. And I know that even through this book where I talk about things I did that were bad, I was a good person back then. I was a loyal, honest person most of my life. I made some mistakes, missteps, whatever you want to call. But I'm kind of pulling back on my overcorrection. I've paid my personal penance. And now I want to say this, like everyone needs to strap themselves in this year because something is happening to me right now. And it is like the phoenix rising out of the ashes of the last 2 years of my grief and everything. And I feel fierce and I feel well calibrated. I don't feel manic. I don't feel like I'm out of control. I don't feel like I'm going to be somebody that's going to do something disastrous. I feel so locked in to the great parts of what I
Wow.
am and equipped to lead through this time that I'm seeing that the continuation of shining my light is giving me good things to my business and good things to my life and giving me good happiness ROI, and I feel fulfilled and I'm well balanced in my life where I am present with my family. And so, man, for the first time in my life, I just feel like I'm on the right road really, really well. I feel like I've been veering from both sides my whole life and never really getting the car completely on the tracks, even though I was winning races on the sidelines. Right now, I hope it continues. I believe that it will. I even believe maybe everything that's happened to me is part of the story that I'm telling. And so, anyways, maybe I also know that I'm in the last 5 to 8 years of telling my career story, and I so want to go out on top. Like, if you ever want to know when I'm going to leave this industry, watch for when I reach my ultimate height, because that's when I'll drop my mic, because I want to be remembered at that place, you know? And I'm going to climb to that. Like, I believe I am going to really reach heights people don't even expect. There are things happening for me behind the scenes right now that are pretty incredible things. So, anyways, do not stand down. That's the chapter.
If you're listening to this episode and you're thinking about someone in your life you care about, needs to hear this message, share it with them. Please leave us a review on the Culture Matters podcast, and we will see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast.